might happen. You and Raven Chapman are going to happen. But you both got fights in July coming up.
Yeah, so obviously Raven is my mandatory. She hasn't been out this year, so they obviously wanted to get her out before going into that fight, which gave me the opportunity to have a voluntary defense in there as well. But yeah, that fight's obviously always been kind of inevitable and a really exciting fight for British fans.
And the big question is it going to be in Saudi Arabia? She can't say anything because it is.
I don't know.
You tell Fibs. There's another 5v5 about October, which would be about the right time, wouldn't it?
There is a good chance that it could be. Nothing is finalised yet, but obviously we both have fights ahead of us that we need to focus on beforehand. But if all things go to plan, there is a good chance that we could fight in Saudi Arabia.
And that would make a bit of history, the first female fight in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, the first female world title fight. Which I think will be very special for Raven and I think it's a fight that's deserving of that opportunity as well.
The two best people in the division fight each other in Saudi Arabia for the most money. Not bad.
I mean, I'm not complaining.
So that confirms it, that both Skye and Raven are going to have at least one fight before they face each other later on in the year. Skye Nicolson, who sports a professional record of 10 wins with no losses, no draws, 1 recorded knockout, to Raven Chapman, who has 8 recorded wins, no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts in what is a battle of the unbeaten.
Skye the champion versus Raven the challenger.
And they're contrasting styles, where Skye, for the most part, has been a finesse fight and fleet of foot kind of fighter. Raven Chapman has been a down and dirty, mid-range to inside fighter, combination puncher.
Stylistically, the fight favors Raven.
It favors Raven unless there's more to Skye than what she has shown us so far, because what she's shown us is that for the most part, she's an outside fighter. Economic, staying behind the jab, staying behind the straight punches, seldom ever coming forward. Instead, often choosing to hang back, fighting from a safe distance behind straight punches. Can Raven draw her out? Can she force her to fight?
Pure boxer versus the pressure fighter. The defensively minded pure boxer versus the pressure fighter that's not afraid to take one to give one.
Both have their separate brands of defense. The pure boxer, for the most part, relies on managing the distance to defend themselves, whereas the pressure fighter,
they've got to slip punches, roll punches, jab as they come forward to keep their opponent's guns holstered as they close the distance.
Where that pure boxer is trying to keep distance, maintain it,
land counters,
more cautious. And the drawback in that situation for the pure boxer is they don't throw as many punches in a round, as many punches in a situation as a pressure fighter does. That's why the fight favors Raven's style more than Skye's, unless there's more to Skye than what we've seen so far.
We'll see.
What would be the ideal addition, ideal undercard fight for what's supposed to be the second installment of Matchroom versus Queensberry? The first one is just a week or so away.
The second's supposed to go down later on this year, presumably where Skye and Raven would meet.
September or October, somewhere around there. Ideal fight for the Matchroom versus Queensberry show. Matchroom featherweight versus Queensberry featherweight. Pure boxer versus pressure fighter.
Polar opposites.
And as stated, both fighters will see action over the summer months before inexorably facing each other. With those things in mind, whoever they fight, I don't think it will be someone that jeopardizes the fight between them.
It's going to be a manageable situation.
A manageable opponent as to not jeopardize their showdown. Very curious to see how Skye will deal with Raven Chapman when the time comes, because Skye just doesn't throw enough for me, and that's a problem. You know, when you're taller and longer than your opponents, and you're a bit faster on your feet, with faster hands, you can have your way with them. Fight long distance, long range, but Raven, she's got hand speed of her own, foot speed of her own.
It will be harder to shake and bake her.
Shake her off the way that Skye Nicolson shakes off many of her opponents who are much slower on their feet. It's much easier to manage the distance against them.
Outmaneuver, out-hustle them.
Skye doesn't throw very many combinations. It's really just 1 and 2 punches at a time, singles from a safe distance.
Raven is more come forward, more active in a round, more active in a fight, sets a faster pace.
The pace in and of itself can wear on a pure boxer's energy reserves, as they want to fight at a more controlled tempo.
Pressure fighter won't let him.
Not dissimilar from what we saw this past weekend between unbeaten Frankie Sanchez and unbeaten Agit Kabayel. Agit decided to put a lot of pressure on Frankie, and Frankie just didn't know what to do.
Agit's a pressure fighter.
Not necessarily, but he fought like one against Frankie Sanchez, and Frankie, like a lot of pure boxers, He crumbled under the pressure. He fell apart. He couldn't keep the other guy out and couldn't deal. Mid-range to inside. That could happen to Skye.
Unless there's more to her than what she's shown us so far.
I'd be impressed if Skye wins, though I'm not sure she's going to. More often than not, these sugarfoot finesse fighting fighters crumble under pressure, and Skye Nicolson could be the next. Men's junior middleweight news. I'm sure most of you have heard by now. Sebastian Fundora and Errol Spence have agreed to a deal for a WBC junior middleweight title fight in October in Dallas, sources told ESPN. PBC's hope is to stage the Prime Video pay-per-view event at AT&T Stadium if the finalized date fits into the Dallas Cowboys' home schedule.
If this, hope that, doesn't sound concrete, does it?
No, it doesn't. Rumors abound. Rumor has it that Gervonta Davis's fight with Frank Martin in June. Gervonta Davis's fight next month may be the last fight that the PBC does on Prime. So how do you reconcile those rumors with this news?
Well, those rumors are rumors, and they should be treated as such. We don't know that those rumors are going to check out. We don't know that they're not. We don't know that this fight is going to happen at the proposed date because that's what they're hoping.
They're hoping to stage it at AT&T Stadium if the finalized date fits into the Dallas Cowboys schedule. What if it doesn't? We're in May. A lot can happen between now and October.
That's how you reconcile it.
The fight is reportedly agreed between the two teams. Sebastian Fundora initially was supposed to be satisfying his mandatory challenger, Terrence Crawford. But after the Tim Tszyu fight, news broke that he would be on the bench until the fall.
That's convenient.
And that Errol Spence Jr. was there ringside, and that he climbed into the ring post-fight. That Samson Lukowicz said immediately after the fight he wanted to do a fight between Sebastian and Errol.
Yeah, I guess these are all just coincidences.
That Samson Lukowicz immediately after the fight said Terrence would have to wait because what he wanted to do was a Spence fight.
It's just a coincidence, I guess.
The relevance of that to this story is that in some circles, small ones, Terrence Crawford has come under fire for facing Israel Madrimov instead of someone else. Israel Madrimov, newly crowned WBA junior middleweight champion, who only has about 10 professional bouts.
Some people are calling him a cherry pick.
Because he doesn't have that many fights. Well, need I remind you, he only landed on Israel because he couldn't get Sebastian. Sebastian was who he was supposed to be fighting.
But Sebastian is unavailable until the fall. Right on time to face Errol and not Terrence.
That's convenient, and we've been all through that. That if you don't like Israel as an opponent for Terrence, you can blame Sebastian, because it was supposed to be him.
Sebastian's going to end up forfeiting the WBO title.
Now that we know who Sebastian's going to be fighting next, I've no doubts the WBO is going to be Johnny on the spot, and they're going to take that title from him.
Because now they know who he's fighting, and it's not their mandatory challenger.
It's not the winner of Crawford versus Madrimov. It's Errol Spence Jr. Errol, who's coming off a shellacking in late July of last year.
They're going to strip Sebastian.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them strip Sebastian right on time for the WBO title to be on the line in the Crawford versus Madrimov fight in August. There's plenty of time to do it. We're in May now. They have all of June, all of July, and some of August to strip Sebastian and give the brown belt to the winner of Crawford versus Madrimov, because Terrence Crawford's WBO super champion. That's how he became Sebastian's mandatory straight away. And now we know Sebastian's not fighting him.
Right?
That would leave Sebastian with only the green belt, the WBC title to defend against Errol Spence Jr., who doesn't seem to believe in tune-up fights, even though he needs one. If your last fight was in July, and your next fight is in October, that's well over a year's time in between fights, and you're coming off a devastating loss.
A knockout loss.
It's not that Sebastian is so good at junior middleweight, it's that Errol's circumstances are so bad.
You got your fucking ass kicked in your last fight. You're between trainers, you're not with Derek James anymore. The night of, it will have been over a year's time since you fought, and you'll be campaigning at a new weight against one of the most awkward fighters that are there.
In a tweet that Errol Spence Jr. has now deleted, he said in so many words, this may be the last time that we see him.
What?
I don't know how else to interpret that, but that he might retire after that. This may be his final fight.
Then what's it for?
Then why even do it? If this isn't the beginning of a junior middleweight campaign, then why fight Sebastian? Why take on this risk? Some immediately interpreted this as a segue to what could be a Terrence Crawford rematch at junior middleweight. But if Errol Spence Jr. means to retire afterwards, well, that kills that notion. And what's the fucking point anyway?
Then why do it?
Maybe he's strapped for cash, needs a few more bucks before he calls it a career. You know, he's got horses, they need hay. Maybe he just wants one last hoorah, a swan song. He doesn't want to end it on the note that the Crawford fight ended.
I got some bad news for you.
The night of the fight, Sebastian Fundora will have seen action within the last 12 months, whereas Errol will have been removed from the sport for over 12 months.
He's older, he's smaller, he's less active, and he's damaged.
You do with that information what you want to. Might be a situation to where, if he does well, he sticks around. If he doesn't, he hangs him up. Though the fact he has that on his mind.
That says it all.
Tank is the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world.
I threw it out there, and I wanted to see if it would stick.
Yes, I'm going to push it. For me, it's between Bud, Inouye, and Tank. Not between Canelo and Usyk. Sorry, they're not there yet, in my opinion. The reason I'm saying this is because one dude has went up 14 pounds. The other two have went up 12 pounds. One dude who went up 14 has a 93% KO rate of all them dudes.
Yeah, 93% KO percentage against overmatched opponents.
Oh, is that not part of the equation? It can't be for Tank.
One has 77, one has 88. They've all done good things, but Inouye, and only Inouye's problem is when you go under 118, the demographic is very small, meaning that it's a lot of Asians and a few Mexicans. It's literally like two demographics that you fight. I don't get how that can make you pound for pound, because pound for pound is about the world.
Inouye's last opponent was from Mexico. The opponent before that was from the Philippines. The opponent before that was from right here in the US of A. Inoue himself has traveled the world more times than Gervonta Davis. He fought in Vegas 2 times, and Carson, California, and Scotland.
And Usyk has spent the bulk of his career on the road. So by that reckoning, they would be number one.
Usyk fought Michael Hunter in America,
Krzysztof Glowacki in Poland, Mairis Briedis in Latvia,
Murat Gassiev in Russia, Tony Bellew and Anthony Joshua, and Derek Chisora in the United Kingdom, and he was more recently in action in Saudi. He does a lot more traveling than Gervonta.
So by that logic, shouldn't he be number one?
Not about a small demographic, so he loses points there, but he's still on my list. Bud is very, very close, but whatever he does at 154 is going to matter. If he go out there and wreck shop like he do everywhere else, then shit, I'm going to have to rethink this.
It was the great boxing beats and rhymes in response to this very same boxing take that said it best. Absolute garbage take. A take based on race politics without the balls to say it's based on race politics.
Exactly.
The reason that caller who called into the Boxing Voice with some of the most horrible anecdotes and annotations I've ever heard, the reason he doesn't say it outright, that what he's saying is based on race.
The reason he doesn't say it is because if he did, people would immediately dismiss him. Who you rank on a pound-for-pound list has fuck all to do with race. But that's what his annotations are based on. You're working it out in your mind to where somehow, some way, Gervonta can be the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport ahead of people who are far more accomplished than he is.
And more active, because he ain't fought in a year.
Tank is the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world.
I threw it out there, and I wanted to see if it would stick.
Yes, I'm going to push it. For me, it's between Bud, Inouye, and Tank. Not between Canelo and Usyk. Sorry, they're not there yet, in my opinion. The reason I'm saying this is because one dude has went up 14 pounds. The other two have went up 12 pounds. One dude who went up 14 has a 93% KO rate of all them dudes.
Hold the bullshit. When has Gervonta Davis ever been at a 43-pound weight disadvantage, like Usyk was this past weekend? When has Gervonta Davis ever walked in there with a guy...
Because this is about weight, right?
When has he ever been in there with a guy that weighed 43 pounds more than he did? It doesn't happen.
Doesn't fucking happen.
You're saying that because he has a 93% knockout percentage, that makes him a number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport. Well, Artur Beterbeef's got a 100% knockout percentage. He's knocked out everyone he's fought.
Doesn't that make him number one?
And I guess that means Floyd Mayweather was never pound for pound at all, because he wasn't a knockout merchant. He didn't have a high knockout percentage.
Manny Pacquiao had a higher knockout percentage than he did, but when they fought, who won?
Make it make sense. Andre Ward didn't have a high knockout percentage, so I guess that means that he was never pound for pound either.
Do you see the mental gymnastics these people have to employ to put Gervonta on a pedestal?
And we all know why they do it. It's not because of boxing. It's not because of his quality of competition.
It's not.
It's just like the great Boxing Beats and Rhymes said. Everything this guy says has everything to do with race, politics, but he doesn't come right out and say it because if he did, his annotations would be immediately dismissed. The number one pound-for-pound fighter has fuck all to do with what you look like and where you live.
American insecurity.
Americans never take it well when the spotlight is on somebody else. A few weeks ago, it was on Inoue, and they had a problem with that. Now it's on Usyk, and they have a problem with that.
It's always the same.
What the American boxing fan has become is the butt of every joke on a global stage because no boxing fan is quite as fucking dumb as the American.
It's tantamount to saying that a given team in a league is the best team in the league just because they're from the same state as me. No, you can root for the home team, you can do that, but that by itself doesn't make them the best.
In the MLB or the NFL, the NHL, the NBA,
These other organized sports, only in boxing do you hear moronic takes like this.
only in the American boxing scene do you see individuals go out of their way, the way that gentleman does, on a regular basis.
So you want Gervonta Davis to be the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, having never unified a title at any weight that he's campaigned?
Nope.
Not pursuing the champions at his own weight the way those aforementioned fighters did. Canelo, Inoue, Usyk, Crawford.
They're undisputed champions, those guys are. Undisputed champions. 3 of them have been undisputed champions more than once.
Twice.
And Gervonta Davis is supposed to be ranked ahead of them. Why? Because he looks like you?
Who the fuck are you?
Who the fuck are you? That it should matter if he's from the same place or is the same race as you. You're making this about yourself.
Insecure Americans.
The biases grow even more brazen and prevalent as the years progress, and boxing in and of itself becomes more of a world sport, not dominated by any one market, just one market, and the Americans, they can't handle it.
So I've got a retort.
The top 4 pound-for-pound fighters in the sport right now, in no particular order.
None.
Alexander Usyk, Naoya Inoue, Canelo Alvarez, and Terence Crawford. They're from all around the world. Mexico, America, Japan, and the Ukraine. That's where boxing is.
It's a world sport.
More exclusive to your world. Gervonta Davis isn't even a pound-for-pound fighter. There is absolutely no evidence
None.
to substantiate
Zero.
that claim. If he is the poster child for anything, he's the poster child for posers with latent homosexual tendencies.
Who overcompensate by beating women.